Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. So in the next video, we're going to go over Revelation 19, and we're going to explain why the sword of Scripture is the sword of the Spirit of God, the war Spirit of God, and the righteous are refined and sharpened. The spirits, their souls, in the afterlife after they've been screened out and fought to the death like Samson and what have you. So keep in mind that in the story, which is again, it's superimposed on the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order. So the Bible is really about the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order and these guys who fought to the death over the years. And a bunch of jealous people from the Middle East and wherever else, Europe, they tried to write themselves into the story and explain it in a certain way that points to them unfairly. Okay, that's a huge part of it, right? The devil tries to play God, and the devil has his chosen people as well, which are the people who were able to spread the church message around the world, right? You know, where it says, you know, the devil leads the whole world astray. How? Right? Through the churches, obviously. I mean, how would you lead the world astray? If you were the devil, you'd make a bunch of churches, you'd come and colonize and rape and kill and force people to join your churches and go to your Christian schools and try to set the stage for people to be destitute if they don't take on your philosophies. And that's obviously what's happened here. So David and Goliath, you know, is very much paralleled, right? We see strong connections and parallels between the story of David and Goliath and me versus the world. And that's how Revelation 19 explains it, right? When you read the whole thing through, you see that it's drawing parallels to 1 Samuel 17. It connects to 1 Samuel 17. So 1 Samuel 17:45. David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." So in reality, right, remember, the story is written by Satanists to point to the people that they want to choose, the people who were very much involved in Rome. 1 in 10 Roman citizens were Jews, and they were very much merged with the Romans after the Romans replaced a lot of their patriarchal lines. That's why in the story it says, "You have no king but Caesar." They encoded it into the story what really happened. And so what is going on is that people who rely on weapons, right? They have fancy swords, spears, javelins. They become, you know, ARs. They become drones and tanks and nuclear bombs, right? So they come against me with military propaganda, with guns and grenades and bombs and whatever else they have that they're trying to use in terms of their psyop, in terms of literally in some cases, and they act very arrogant, right? They act like Bebop and Rocksteady, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, Dr. Doom, Magneto. They act like cartoon and comic. That's why it's called comic books. You know, comics. It's a joke, right? Joking. G.I. Joe. They come at me in the spirit of being a joke with technology. But I come at them in the spirit of God Almighty, the God of the armies of the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order, the God who made the heavens and earth, who elevates the righteous above the wicked, even in their own culture. The fake image of Christ they have is he's depicted on a cross more often than not, because true victory is in principle, not in, you know, bullying people with guns and tanks. That's silly. That's immature. That's for fools and cowards who were raised wrong and never grew up. And of course, they've defied God by persecuting me. "This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals." Notice they're birds that are brought up. "And the whole world will know that there's a God in Israel." So this very day, right, somewhere around 189,000 people will die. And I will, you know, feed them to the righteous in the spiritual realm. And they'll be judged by God and so on and so forth. Okay? They've been struck down because they couldn't overcome the world that God allowed to be. God said, "Hey, if you're so wicked, I'll let your own wickedness, the wickedness of the collective spirit of the inhabitants of the earth, their souls, their being, be the test for them. And they will fail to overcome." The word Goliath and David used was overcome. And Goliath said, "If you overcome us," okay, that, you know, that the Philistines would serve them. And so when David accepted, he also had agreed to the word overcome, and overcome in principle. The story has a moral first and foremost. It doesn't matter if some guy struck some guy down. People kill each other all the time. That doesn't matter. And sometimes they kill each other in a way that people get a lucky shot. That's not the moral of the story. It is principles. And so the carcasses, of the people who die go into the earth. They get buried, they get cremated, whatever happens to them. But their flesh refers to also their presence, their souls, their presence, their spirit will be given to the righteous. All those gathered here in the spiritual realm, those people who are actually living, right? The body without the spirit, the body without the spirit is dead. Like faith without works is dead, is what it says in James. All those who are still alive will know that it is not by technology or sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands. So again, I'm not a Christian. I do not respect Christians, Muslims, or Jews because they persecute me with the state. And I'm the true idea that the Messiah is superimposed on. Would you respect them for that? No. Okay, they don't respect me enough to give me my rightful place, so I do not respect them. No offense to anybody other than the offense that God intended. It's something that has to be said for their countless hate crimes against God and I as they persecute me, as groups. The Philistines are being referred to as a group. Babylon, Sodom and Gomorrah, you name it. Prophecy against this, prophecy against Egypt, prophecy against Jerusalem. They're being referred to as groups. And so the Abrahamic faiths cannot then turn around and complain that I'm judging them as groups and as individuals. They chose to accept the boundaries of those groups. The boundaries of Satan's spirit persecuting God's son. And that's not respectable. That's not being a man. That's pathetic. So all those gathered here today will know that it is not by sword or spear, technology, that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, right? It's in principle. True victory is in principle. The battle is the principle. And he will give all of you into our hands, right? God will honor the righteous. As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching to his bag and taking out a stone, which is symbolic of a lot of things, right? The stone the builder rejected, the tablet that Moses wrote on, the foundation of God's son, righteousness and justice, which is being referred to as stones being laid, right? The cornerstone, the chief cornerstone, what have you. People being stoned to death for sin. Okay, reaching to his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. Why do you think it's saying this? It's saying, look, the battle's in principle. The battle is the Lord's. The Lord decides what principles they are, and obviously God decides its universal, pinpointed moral precision. Going back to 1 John, where it says the one who does what is right is righteous. Okay, the principles of righteousness, the pinpointed principles of righteousness, universal, pinpointed moral precision. And of course, Goliath had challenged him in a way that was universal. And to explain to him why he's wrong in a way that has to do with universal moral precision. David ran and stood over him. He took hold of the Philistine's sword and drew it from the sheath. After he killed him, he cut off his head with the sword. When the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they turned and ran. So with their own sword that they used to kill each other and take each other's souls, I've struck them down, right? They're shooting each other all the time with guns. They're starving each other. They're raping each other, driving each other to suicide, causing them to overdose each other. Then their souls go to hell. What happens to their flesh is like what happens to their fingernail clippings. It's not so important, but their souls go to hell. What's important is what principles they live by, they fought for, they die for, they marry over. That is what's causing them to go to hell. And the sword is also a phallic symbol, so the spirit that they're having sex in is also bringing them down. And a lot of them are far too dumb, right? Like some ignorant porn star or something, to realize that satanic sex they're having is costing them everything. When the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they turned and ran. Then the men of Israel and Judah surged forward with a shout and pursued the Philistines to the entrance of Gath and to the gates of Ekron. Their dead were strewn along the Sharim road to Gath and Ekron. When the Israelites returned from chasing the Philistines, they plundered their camp. David took the Philistines' head and brought it to Jerusalem. He put the Philistines' weapons in his own tent. Now, does it matter if they were chasing the Israelites or they're chasing the Philistines? The Israelites just dealt them a blow that caused them to lose in principle. It doesn't matter who's physically chasing who. It doesn't matter who's physically kills who. It's what's the principle? Are you working for the state like a bitch? Okay, and persecuting the most righteous guy that ever lived, who's also the son of a humanitarian, in case you didn't get it the first time? It's a parent, alpha parent, app parent, a parent. Responsibility, emergency, emerge and see. Urgency, your gene C. It's in your own wordplay. And Set in Egyptian mythology is said to testify against himself, and Baal's equivalent, his Egyptian equivalent, is Set. And the Philistines worship Dagon, and he may as well be considered one of the Baals, and it comes together a certain way. Baal Hamana, Baal of the horde. It's called horde for a reason. Sometimes their word plays to insult the righteous. Sometimes it makes clear their mistake. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. So as we see this, we see that I'm right and they're wrong. Vir in virtue means man. Not how many people you kill. Little kids have killed people. They do all the time, and child soldiers and more. Okay? Can the soldiers who mocked and killed Jesus claim victory? Show me one church that teaches that. That's stupid. Can you imagine these worms arguing? That because they came together like scared little girls afraid to man up, and they're screening me out, that magically they would have magically, won? No. No, that's why they won't come out and debate me, because they know they look like a bitch doing so. And for those of you who are still not convinced because you're like crazy or something, zoom in on verse 52, where it says that the men of Israel and Judah surged forward. Remember, vir in virtue means man, right? The people who were virtuous, who fought the good fight, surged forward. Can you imagine a bunch of people from Israel arguing that when they, take on the Palestinians, that they're surging forward in the spirit? No. People in the churches in America? No, that's stupid as hell. Joel Osteen, the average preacher, Catholic Church, no, these guys aren't in the spirit of God. Everyone knows it. A lot of these people we see today in cults and gang stalkers, they're working for and with the church, clearly, and they have no illusions about that. They're clearly wrong, and they're in sex cults and all this. They're way out of their mind if they think that they're in the spirit of God. And you can't tell one priest who's raping kids from the other because they're in the same spirit, and it's not God's spirit. Again, you cannot tell the difference between the clergy, the spirit of the clergy in the Catholic Church, because they're all, just like the Protestants, in the spirit of organized rape, including raping kids, and not in the spirit of God. Can you imagine the military arguing? About those military guys who voted for Trump, for example. And they're in uniformity in the same spirit as the rest of the military. That's not the spirit of God. Nor is the spirit of American martial artists or churches, mosques, and synagogues. Other churches, mosques, and synagogues, or any other movement, any New Age, I'm the only one in God's spirit. Surged forward. Okay? And strangely enough, my father's a brain surgeon. That doesn't make him a holy man by itself. But it's an interesting fact that the word surge is like the word surgeon. And in Angolan culture, for example, Angolan African martial art culture, which is not the same as the martial arts of God, but there's something, it's closer to it than a lot of martial artists, we'll say, a lot of martial arts. The leopard is the surgeon. Okay, it'll take some kind of thinking, well, it was either that or it was, I think it was, no, it was that. If I'm not, yeah, it was that. Okay. Now, also you have surgery, right? Surge Eri the Skywalker, to walk with God, right? God is said to have led the Israelites into battle while leaving no footprints. Why? Because he was skywalking, the Skywalker. There's a lot of connections there, If you don't understand the wordplay there, just ask in the comments. I'll help you understand it and connect it to the countless scriptures like Job, where the hawk spreads its wings by the wisdom of God, and martial art wisdom. How there's various forms of Horus. One is the true form of God's son. The other are a bunch of pagan ideas that they blurred on it. So before they try to blur the line with it, Before the Bible was written, there was already a conception of righteousness and justice, right? Nimrod was a mighty warrior for the Lord, Noah. So we know that the flood was figurative. There was something being talked about in terms of righteousness and righteous martial arts before the Torah was written. Okay.